All right, here we go on this Wednesday afternoon. Good afternoon. SicEm365 Radio, 365 Sports on the app, online, and, of course, YouTube channel that is absolutely blown up. We went over, I believe I saw the number, over 5,000 subscribers in the last 24 hours. We appreciate you for being a part of it. I copied and pasted some of the text messages even after we've been off the air, and we're going to read some of those as well. One from an incoming freshman in Houston who's coming to Baylor, in fact, in Jackson. But also, you go to our text line, 254-339-1122, and like, all right now, I'm so-and-so from Kansas. I'm so-and-so from here and there, Alabama. We love it. We appreciate it, and we appreciate the fact you trust us to talk about many things in sports, college football. There is some other news to get to involving Cowboys camp, the Rangers, the Mavericks, and much more. Paul Catalina to my left, Craig Smoak to my right, and I'm David Smoak, and this is, again, SicEm365 Radio. So, thought about this. Who has more leverage, Texas, Oklahoma, or the remaining 8 schools in the Big 12?
I guess it depends on your perspective on things, but currently, the remaining 8 schools have a little bit of leverage because they don't have to let Texas and Oklahoma leave for 4 years.
The 8 schools have the leverage. I mean, it's very clear. There's a buyout. There is, this push by Oklahoma and Texas to leave, but there's also this airtight thing called the grant of rights. And the grant of rights matters. If it doesn't matter for the Big 12, then it doesn't matter for anybody. And do you think the ACC or the SEC, as cozy and as comfortable as they might be, do you think that they're going to sit there and go, yeah, grant of rights don't really matter? What would that do to them? That means everybody would just have free reign, right? Right? Yep. So, I mean, grant of rights matter. So the Big 12, if they did anything right this entire time, it was to have the contract in place that they had. And you see how this has all kind of started to slow down a little bit. And now part of that is the fact that they're apparently supposed to have the SEC meeting tomorrow. That's when we'll probably hear more about Texas and Oklahoma and the next step in their joining the Southeastern Conference. But the Big 12 has unless somebody can correct me, they have all the strength in their corner at this moment because they don't technically have to do anything. All they have to do is just keep 4+ teams together for the next few years. And I know that seems unlikely when you're having all this conversation about poaching and other conferences expanding. But, I mean, guys, let's just say all the scenarios we've thrown out there, what if nobody else expands anytime soon? They don't have to, right? So, like, a lot of this stuff originally was just very reactionary, like, oh, my God, like, they did this, now we have to do this, and if we do this, then who does this? But, I mean, quite frankly, you don't see anybody else right now, and I'm sure there are conversations going on behind the scenes, but it's not like we're starting to hear hot and heavy rumors about anything else really happening at this point. So, based on what we know about Baylor's stance, based on what Chris Level said about Texas Tech, based on what Randy Peterson said about Iowa State, and I would imagine that probably also holds true for the other 5 schools, they have no motivation to go out right now other than just if the perfect offer came along and it was an offer that they just could not turn down. There's no reason for them to panic and just start, jumping off the life raft right now. So I think the Big 12, as best I can tell, has the I don't know, the edge in their corner as far as this situation goes, but I'm very intrigued to see what Texas and Oklahoma do because I was thinking about this last night. I assume they're going to pay the buyout, right? Mm-hmm. Or this is going to go to court, but I assume that they would just pay the buyout to get out of this and just be done with it. And I saw, where a few Texas people reported that Kevin Eltife has already got the money lined up for Texas. I have not seen that on the Oklahoma side of things. Maybe that's the case. But I assume they're going to pay it out because if they don't, then what was the plan? If they weren't planning on buying this out, they had to have known the Big 12 was not just going to go like, okay, you guys are free to leave.
Here's
bye.
The door. Yeah.
So they had to have known the Big 12 was going to say, no, we got a contract. So that's why I assume they have to be buying this out in the next few days or whatever the timeline is, because if not, then what was the plan?
At least they have to buy it out by the end of the year. They're not going anywhere now. They can't
not
play
this year, not this season.
So they don't have to write the check today, but they're going to have to write the check between now and 2022. Sometime you would think, so everyone can react. Mm-hmm. Their hope is they don't have to write as large a check, and that they can negotiate like Maryland did, like others have done, at least 60%, 50%, 70% of what is on the dollar.
Well, again, if there wasn't the plan to get out right now, why not just, okay, here's the plan for 3 years from now. In 3 years, we're going to set all this stuff up, And so,
isn't that what they kind of said in their statements?
but then tell the Big 12 then, because then you really screw the Big 12.
Right.
But
that's something that clicked in my head last night. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah, if they wanted to leave,
they don't have to let them leave, and that means they have to pay. Then they were either planning on paying, and if they don't, which we'll see. I mean, that's the thing is we have to see. Like tomorrow, Kevin Eltife could drop an $80 million check for all we know, and it's all done and doesn't matter. But I'm just saying, if this does drag along, it makes me wonder, like, well, what was your plan all along for this? So Brett Zorneman, great job of just blowing this whole thing up and making it all out of whack. So, yeah, that was just something I was thinking about last night. A lot of people talking about these buyouts and everything.
All right, from Jackson, and I mentioned Jackson in Houston. He's an incoming freshman. What do you think about the most likely outcome? And I told Jackson, I said, Jackson, right now the outcome is all 8 teams somehow, unlike what the Big 12 has been since '96, stay together. That doesn't mean you're not talking and, kind of figuring things out. But at the same time, there is some not political pressure being put on anybody specifically. And I'm talking about the state of Texas, but there is talk that, listen, Oklahoma and Texas are all but gone. Officially, not yet, but they're gone. Now, if you're TCU and you're Texas Tech and or Baylor and even others, the thing is, hey, this is still important to the state of Texas, that we need to keep the college football landscape from being down to 2 places, College Station and Austin, no matter the footprints of both schools who carry Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and elsewhere. But that's kind of part of what I would think is going on. And in Oklahoma, I don't know. We know about the politics with Oklahoma. They're gone. We know they're gone. So what you do, it's hard, and nobody in the Big 12 has ever really trusted many because you kind of don't know who you're aligned with. Be patient. You're going to get a check. And I think the number actually is like 4 or 6 teams that have to leave or announce they're leaving for the grant. Not 2, not 3, maybe not 4, but possibly 6 that would have to say they're leaving before the grant of rights deal becomes null and void.
And that would include Texas and Oklahoma, so they would need 4 more.
Yeah.
So they need half the rest of the conference to leave. And my thought on that was, this was another thing I was just randomly thinking about. Okay, let's say that West Virginia gets cold feet and they're like, we're going to the ACC. Let's get out of here. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, Iowa State and Big Ten, or Iowa State and K-State go to the Big Ten, and then Tech goes to the Pac-12. Okay, so that leaves 4 teams. Technically, you're still okay. What would prevent those 4 teams, if it was like Baylor, TCU, and whoever the other 2 are that I didn't mention, from just going like, we know not many people are going to watch, and we know it's not going to be like great TV money. But you know how many buyouts? That would be 4 more buyouts. Those 4 teams, that would be the most unlikely scenario. But in theory, if you just hung on, you and 3 others, and you watched others bail out like Texas and Oklahoma did, you could have a massive payday headed your way. Now, I don't think it would get to that point, but that was just something that crossed my mind because of that 4-team threshold that you mentioned. So, yeah, in theory, 4 more teams could leave. They would also then pay their buyouts, and whoever's the 4 teams remaining, you're in trouble as far as the future goes, but you're also pocketing $200 million, something along those lines.
The biggest thing that they need to do is be as litigious as possible.
Absolutely.
Everybody's going to hate it. I was on with a Clemson station earlier today, and he said, what's the next step? I said, the lawyers have to do what they do best and just lawyer up for as long as they can. If that still means in the end the conference breaks up, that's fine, but it cannot break up for these other 8 teams until they get the most money and pain inflicted on Oklahoma and Texas that they can.
Basically, yeah.
That's what they have to do.
Yeah, and because we've already measured them up, right? There's the 2 that are 6'3", 215, model looks and all of that, and they're going to go off and join the other models and whatever. But for the other schools, I think we've all made it pretty clear, and most articles have made it clear, there's not really a big desire out there for any of these remaining teams. We can easily say, oh, we'll Tech to the Pac-12. Well, then I read some Pac-12 stuff, and I don't think the Pac-12's as interested as Tech probably thinks they might be. Iowa State to the Big Ten. Well, I read some Big Ten stuff, and I don't think the Big Ten's as interested as Iowa State, some Iowa State fans may think they would be. Same with Kansas. Same with Kansas State. So, it's fun to throw out stuff, but ultimately, you're not seeing any other conferences, as best we can tell, really doing much. So, yeah, I think you hold on to that life raft if you're one of these remaining Big 12 teams as long as you possibly can. And there's actually scenarios like the one I just mentioned of where you could get all the way down to 4 teams, but you'd have so much buyout money remaining after that to me, it just makes sense. If you're a Baylor, you're a TCU, you just keep holding on, man.
All right, a lot of you